If I could only read your mind with superhuman power, life would be a breeze sometimes. The good stuff's in between the lines, my thoughts and my feelings still tell 1,000 lies. But now you're taking away my sorrow, you're taking away my fear. We're not promised tomorrow, so let me hold you close, my dear. Nothing's gonna bring me down, no thinking about the past while we're building for tomorrow. Nothing's gonna bring me down.
Hello and welcome to episode 25 of The Good Stuff In Between with me, Shaun Milne. As regular listeners will know, this is a show where we try and speak to people who are in the music industry to support those who are just making their own journey and their own way. But what we haven't done yet is really look at the tech and the platforms that could enable people to maybe get a leg up or push away through the crowd of noise that often confronts people trying to get their sound heard. So today I'm absolutely delighted to welcome the founder of a platform called Songbox, Ciarán O'Toole. How are you?
Hey Sean, how are you? Thank you for inviting me on to your podcast. And yeah, I'm in good form. I'm in Glasgow in Scotland. So, 4 seasons in a day as usual.
Songbox was, I'm not going to lie, something that was quite new to me. I was surprised to learn it was Scottish, or based in Scotland at least. And then I found it through a webinar you were having just like maybe a couple months ago that came on. And what really surprised me is the number of people who attended. There was loads of folk eager to hear what you had to say. What is Songbox? What's its purpose?
Share music privately is its core purpose and where it all began, really. We do a lot more than that nowadays because we are a 4-year-old Scottish software startup. I'm not sure startup is still the right term. We're a bit more established now, but we're, still in startup world. And it started as a really simple idea. Michael, who I've known 20 years, former professional musician, started his own band, DIY'd it as more and more people do these days, but 20 years ago, did it all himself, got his band together, booked their shows locally in Paisley, then in Glasgow, then across Scotland, then across the UK, then got on some support slots for some bigger bands and then some really big bands. And, that was all just grinding it out. There was no record deal or investments or anything like that. And he ended up getting the support slot on a band called Alter Bridge, their tour. And Alter Bridge was the guys who used to be in Creed, who were massive American band, a great band. And Alter Bridge, fantastic band with an amazing singer, Miles Kennedy. But anyway, Michael managed to hustle himself onto supporting them in the UK, and it went really, really well. And then he got the European tour like the following year. And when he was on tour with Alter Bridge, at the start of one of the tours, I think it was the European tour, he'd said to Mark Tremonti, founder of the band and kind of main songwriter, he said, "Oh, that's really interesting what you're playing there on the tour bus. What's that?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm writing a song for American Idol." And Mike goes, "Oh, wow, that's amazing." At the end of the tour, Michael then said to Mark, "How'd you get on with that song for American Idol?" And Mark goes, "I don't know. Wrote it, sent it off, probably never hear from them again." And, Michael was like, that's interesting. And then he ended up getting signed to Universal, and he was out in the States, and then he got dropped by Universal. He tells the story much better than me. And he found himself back in the job centre in Paisley. But then a few years later, we started working together on a couple of initiatives. And how I got to know Michael was one of the roles I used to have was I used to be a radio programmer or a content controller or whatever, an editor, which you're familiar with, Shaun, as well, right? With your background in media. So I used to pick music. I used to pick music for the radio. I still pick music because I'm also a professional DJ. So I play a club every week. So I was never great at playing music. I was very good at picking music. So I thought Mick, his band were really good. So I picked them and played them on the radio. They're a great band. That's how we became friends and stayed in touch all that time. And then started a company myself about 12, 13 years ago. And we raised money through private equity, things like that. And when Michael came out of the band, he retrained really as a software engineer, even though he'd been kind of playing at that for a long time as well. And in this company we had, going back kind of 12 years, and my experience in a lot of media companies, we had this corner where all the demos would be piled up, and Michael used to call it the corner where dreams go to die, because all the demos were good, and you just couldn't listen to them all. You could not listen to them all. There were so many of them, and that still happens today. So his experience on tour, his experience of being in a media company and seeing all these demos piling up, led him to having time at home alone, in his pants with some Iron Brew and pizza, while his wife and his kids were off visiting family. And he started to code his prototype for how to track your demo. That really lent itself then to, how do you share music privately? Because people use Dropbox and they use SoundCloud and they attach files on email still to this day. And many of these platforms are not designed for music. Right? Dropbox is not designed for music. It's file sharing. It's not a musical experience. SoundCloud, you go, oh, SoundCloud's designed for music. SoundCloud's a social media network before it's anything else, right? And it's also what we would call post-release material, right? It's for material you've released. Songbox is pre-release material. We are really from the inception of the song, even getting the idea down, the basic demo, the basic chords, right through till it's ready for release. So you might then send it off for mastering or send it to your manager, whatever, right? Ready for release. So we're pre-release as a platform. So sharing music privately, pre-release, a lot of people will use email attachments, Dropbox links, even WeTransfer links. Some will use a private YouTube link or a private SoundCloud link. And if you've ever done that, it's okay, but it's not great, and it's definitely not a great way to present yourself if you are going to be pitching yourself, because you can use songboxes like an EPK, electronic press kit. And it's not a great way if you want to share music privately with maybe your manager, your agent, your other band members, or even industry people you want to share it with privately, get some feedback on and things like that. And the final point I'll say about it, because this is a very long answer to your simple question, the thing that really helps people with Songbox is it's very simple to use, one click to create, one click to share. But probably one of the biggest benefits is it's low to no friction. So when you send it to someone, they don't have to have a Songbox account. They can literally just click the link and listen, and that's it. And then as the sender, you get all the stats. You know that if I send it to you, Shaun, I know you've opened it. I know you've listened to it. I know how long you've listened, which bits you listened to. Did you listen to the whole thing? Where in the world did you listen to it? On what type of device did you listen to it on? So it gives me all of that info, which to some people is gold. To others, they don't really care. They just want to know it's been shared and that you actually listen to it. So Songbox is to share music privately at its core. And there's a whole other range of things we do now that we've developed over the last 4 years from listening to our users, basically, the members who use Songbox around the world, telling us what else they need to make it better. And that's what we spend a lot of our days doing, is we do calls with our customers, listening to their ideas or their problems, and then trying to figure it out.
According to your website, at least the last time I checked it, you talk about being a startup, but it says that you had 15,000 users already. That you'd been doing 100,000 uploads, 6.5 million secure streams. I would imagine those numbers are a bit dated now already.
Yeah.
What would the likes of Google, Dropbox, and SoundCloud say to you when they're seeing those numbers building and building and building, and you saying our platform's better than your platform?
One of the reasons we had so many users for a period of time is because we used to do free accounts and we got thousands of users, which is really interesting because that was a really good training pool of data to learn. And then we removed free users maybe about a year ago, less than a year ago. And everyone on the platform now is a paid member, either a starter, a professional, or a business. So that has reduced our user count down significantly. However, the volume of use is still trending, pro rata at the same or higher. Like we will add over 3,000 songs a month to the platform, and the stream count continues to grow because we grow every month, but we don't advertise. And I know that sounds like a contradiction, but it's largely word of mouth, which is the best, but it's slow. And network effect. That's kind of how we grow. People share songboxes with people. People get curious. People get their own songbox account. We are still far too small for a Dropbox, a Google, a WeTransfer, I think, to be interested. And some would say we're a very niche service, a very targeted service, maybe. But, still a business there. So, we're never going to be as big as Dropbox or Google or whatever. Don't want to be, because what we're interested in is what we are doing. So I think in a world in the future, one of those companies might say to us, we like what you're doing. We'll either copy you or we will acquire you, right? Or maybe we'll never hear from them. Unknown, I think. But our growth is very consistent. And probably the more pleasing thing is not how big or small we are. The most pleasing thing, Shaun, is how sticky we are. You'd be like, what? So what I mean by that is our stickiness is our churn rate is really low. Like it's like less than 5%. So when we get a member, I don't really like calling the people we work with customers. They're users or they're members, because the vast majority of them are professionals in the music industry. And Michael and I have a huge amount of respect for the people we work with on Songbox because they're very, very talented people. So subscriber always feels like the wrong word to us because we like to interact with our members on a regular basis, whether it's emails or video calls or even phone calls. Some of our members have our mobile numbers, and they'll just phone us up, and you kind of think, well, that's crazy. Well, it's not really when some of our members operate at a very high level, and just really want a personal service. And I think that's part of the benefit of Songbox is that we're humans. There's no AI, there's no automation. It's real people. And that's probably why we won't be the size of Dropbox or Google, and maybe even why they probably wouldn't be that interested in us, because while we're a software digital business, it's a very analog approach to doing business, which is human and connection and listening.
I think what that suggests to me is a company that is very confident in itself. A company that has a purpose, it knows what it's doing, and has, if you don't mind me talking about it a bit, has got a good background to it. This isn't your first rodeo. You've been involved in startups, you've been involved with, rock radio stations, Bauer, Guardian News and Media. You've done the hard yards. You've been there. You've raised, tens of millions of pounds in finance and equity before. You clearly know what you're doing. Michael clearly has had that experience, knows what it's doing. You've had big name backers come on board. It's the kind of thing that says, take us seriously if you're speaking to the business. I guess the question for me is, how do you get that confidence that's in you and that you have out there to artists who are, I mean, by any accounts, most of the ones I see are sharing stuff with me on Dropbox or SoundCloud because it's just what they're used to doing. How do you persuade them that actually this is worth making a leap?
That's a really good question. Yeah, it's not our first rodeo, and I think with Michael and me, we've got a very yin and yang skill set, personality types that connect really well, and that's, you know, with founders of any company, that's usually the number one benefit, the skills and experience of the founders, but also often a weakness in that overlapping skill sets or personalities that don't grow over time together, they clash ultimately. So this is the third time we've worked together, and as I said, 20 years, so really complementary, not our first rodeo. And yeah, we have a lot of experience in media, music, technology, finance, and we've experience in failing, which is the most valuable thing we've got, right? Like, I have blown millions and failed spectacularly. And as I said, you know, Michael, he had a pretty good growing music career and then just like evaporated within the matter of days, weeks, months, whichever way he wants to tell it. And that they were very hard landings for us, really hard landings. But from that, you know, like anything in life, failure is a good thing, right? You know, learned experience. And you have to pick yourself up. You can't just sit on the floor and feel sorry for yourself. You have to pick yourself up, no matter whether it's business or personal or whatever, right? You trip and you fall, you get back up again, at a small scale or a massive scale, whatever. So those experiences, exceptionally valuable to us. And I suppose that has really helped how we approach Songbox and how we approach our members and our users, whether they are trying to figure out how to use their drum machine in their bedroom or whether they've just played Madison Square Garden last night and they can't remember what their password is, right? It's like, it really is a scale, and we engage with our members at either end of that scale because to some degree we can relate. And as I said earlier, I think being human and being real, I think a lot of us can take that for granted, how valuable and growing in value that is going forward. So how does any of that help people want to trial Songbox or become a member of Songbox? I think a lot of it starts with people looking at our website and going, they look serious, as you kind of alluded to earlier. They look serious. Okay. They send us an email, or they jump on our live chat function, or they book a demo. And one of the most pleasing things is when people send us an email, Michael or I reply to every single one of them. Right? There's nobody else. There's no robots or other people. We reply. Might not reply instantly, or we might. It just depends, right? Because a lot of our customers are in the States. So time differences. If people jump on live chat, they don't get a bot, they get Michael or me, and we reply to them. And on email, there's usually a bit of a delay. On live chat, like, we could be replying at 8 a.m, 2 a.m, whatever, because, you know, we're on the business 24/7. When we reply on live chat, people get very surprised that we're real. And then they're more likely to book a demo. And then when they book a demo and the camera turns on and there's Michael and me, hey, how are you doing? How can we help you? That goes a long way to convincing either the bedroom artist or the arena artist that actually this is not Dropbox or Google or SoundCloud. This is very, not different, but feels a lot better, and feels real. And that goes a long way to convincing them to sign up as members. Although there is this flip side of the coin, which is also interesting, where, you know, we have members who we've never spoken to. They've just signed up, right? And they've just like bought an annual account. And like, we look at their name and might either recognize the name immediately or you do a bit of a Google, and you're like, wow, I'm surprised they remember. How did they even find us? And then you email them and you try to contact, and you never hear from them. You know, they pay their subscription every month or every year, and they put a lot of stuff on it, and you never hear from them. They never want anything. So it's really interesting. Like, I would love to get more insight from those members who like just pay, and you know, no matter kind of where they are in their career, you don't hear from them. And then the other members who you maybe engage with. Problem with that in business terms, as I'm sure you know, Shaun, is it's not scalable. You can't scale a business with one-to-one contact like that. And that's definitely going to be one of our challenges, is to maintain the level of authenticity and communication in a scalable fashion, which is why I don't think we want to kind of get that hockey stick growth and then not be able to maintain a high level quality of service. Just consistent growth over time would be ideal. Nice problem to have, right? And yeah, we could market, we could start advertising, and get more people, but you know, I don't think we're there yet. I think we're quite happy just with our growth curve right now and with speaking with people, because we kind of love that, because that really helps our product grow. And I don't mean in terms of numbers. I mean in terms of the quality of the product, the service it provides. Because having those calls, those emails, those live chats, those demo calls, and you ask the user, what problem are you trying to solve? And they're like, oh, you know, I'm on my tour bus and I want to do this, or I'm working across 3 different studios, or I'm really paranoid and I want to make sure that only my manager is listening to this, whatever it is. And you go, okay, we could do it that way. And then they might just say something to you that you've just never thought about. Like, oh, can you, like, there was a really big artist, got his whole band involved and said, like, crazy big. And mailed, and he was like, I love Songbox, but... And we're like, oh no. And he was like, there's this little thing you've got, and I need a timestamp on it. And I need a timestamp on it because my band keep making alterations in the feedback, in the file. And I just need a timestamp. I need a really quick visible timestamp so I know who changed it last and when they changed it. And I want it to be toggleable, so that some songs we don't need to know that, but some songs we do need to know that. And we're like, that's really simple, but it kind of adds like a lot of data that we wouldn't have thought people wanted, but obviously they do. So then we created a new feature only last week. And that band are like super happy. And maybe other bands will use it, I don't know. But it's touches like that that I think ultimately convince people to join us. And it's those calls that make the product grow in terms of the quality of it. So there's a very layered answer for a very simple question again, Shaun.
So who are these members? Are they big bands and artists, or are people starting out? Are they managers? Are they radio stations? You know, what would you say the breakdown is?
Okay, so 70% are in North America, Canada. 10%, actually 15%. UK is growing now. UK used to only be like 5%. So UK is about 15% now. And then we kind of have about 10% in Western Europe and 5% around the rest of the world. So like New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Argentina, Brazil, really small numbers. Western Europe, France, Germany. Nordics is actually quite decent for Europe. UK now is growing, which is great. It's probably our main growth country, which is as a Scottish business, fantastic. And then North America is really the one, and that's really driven by network effect. And network effect is important to understand then how we have our client base profile. Most of our members are professionals. They earn their living from the music industry. And that is split by 6 segments, actually. a songwriter, an artist as in a musician, songwriter not necessarily a musician, producer, manager, agent, publisher. That's generally about that is our. We have other use cases, but in the music industry, they're the 6 core. Of those, an artist and a producer are the core users, and of that breakdown, like 80% are professionals easily in the whole thing. Like they earn their living from the music industry solely, and of those, I would say at least half have had major hits in the industry. Not, in genre wise, a lot of rock and roll, quite a bit of country music, some soul and some gospel, some big gospel artists, which is interesting. Network effect. You get one or two, and that network effect then picks up more in that circle. So yeah, so it's a fascinating breakdown of members. It really is really, really interesting and diverse as well. And then you alluded to something there, which I'll just add. We have users outside of the music industry, which kind of blows our mind. So we have educational users, religious users, audio book users, I suppose you would call them, creative agencies, and a couple others. But education and religion are actually two of the bigger ones. And again, a little bit of network effect, and we've made zero effort to, they just came to us. So yeah, so it's very varied.
And you aiming for like a premium market whereby it is people who are established, or are you hoping to sort of help cultivate people who are coming through as well?
Great question. Our preferred market or people to help and support would be independent artists, particularly independent artists. Like, from experience, with Songbox and in general, it's actually very difficult to go out and engage established artists. They have a really high wall, right? And they have a lot of gatekeepers at that wall. So you're definitely better off just letting them come to you, right? Don't go chasing them, right? Just if they come to you, they come to you. Great. It is way easier and actually far more interesting, in my opinion, to engage with independent artists who are doing it themselves, either solely by themselves or with their band or with their manager. They're on the road, they're in the van, they are right there doing everything themselves, so they know all the problems. And we find those artists and songwriters and managers not just more interesting, but valuable in the sense of feedback, because they have so many problems that they need help with and so many challenges. So like for Michael and me, if you said, do you just want loads of A-listers? No, the A-listers are nice. Great, cool. But the ones we really like are independent artists, and particularly artists who do it for themselves, because we can really see how we help them. Because I mentioned earlier, we've got a lot of other tools in the system that is far beyond share music privately. You can manage rosters or catalogs. You can get all your publishing information in there. Manages metadata. We also do multimedia, videos, images, PDF, a real suite of things. And you can create a beautiful EPK, electronic press kit, to send out and to pitch. And even then, we can contain all of the metadata for pitching, one-stop shop, rights cleared, all of that stuff, which really helps them. So independent artists who I suppose are truly independent and trying to figure it out is the spot we're probably most interested in.
So you as a business, you're beyond sort of beta now, but you're still gathering data and information as part of your continued product development. It would seem to me that's the same ethos for the platform itself. If people are, sharing their music, seeing and learning how far somebody's going into it, seeing if there's patterns there, seeing when's the best time to pitch, who the people to pitch to. That's knowledge is power for the artist as well, or the manager or the promoter. It's almost like you've created an ecosystem whereby the data is everything.
Yeah, the data is very valuable, and particularly for the managers and artists who are independent, the data is really valuable. And we've improved our data platform based on, again, managers and artists saying, oh, could I get that? Could I do that? Could you track a little bit of that? So the data is not overbearing. Like you can use services and they just have like too much data. There's definitely such a thing as too much data, right? So we've honed it down to the data that the artists and the managers tell us is the most valuable to them when trying to pitch, right? Because that's ultimately what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to get their music to be heard by people they want to hear it, and they want to know if they've heard it and how long they listened and, you know, things like that. So yeah, the insights are very valuable to the artist. So we do get a lot of artists come on it to share music privately, and they're like, great, you know, I can put a password on it, I can 2FA it, I can manage other security features. And then you show them the data they can get, and they're like, oh, yes, this is brilliant, because I'm going to pitch 20 people, or I'm pitching these 3 people, and I want to know who the most interested is, or, you know, I'm only sharing it with this one particular A&R executive. And I just want to know which I'm sending them my whole album, and I want to know what they listen to the most. We have an incredibly successful band using the platform, and they put their latest album on it last year before it was ever released and before they ever sent it to the press. They put it on Songbox and they sent it. I think it had just been mastered. They sent it to like less than 20 really prominent media people to get some early feedback. And they used the data just to see who actually spent the most time listening to the new album and which tracks they listened to, which is phenomenal insights for any artist to really get a feel for it, even pre-release. So yeah, the data is very valuable, but not all artists use it in the same way. Some, kind of like the security features, some artists use no security features, some use everything. Some artists want all the data, some barely look at it.
I'd imagine it's also a bit like when you're doing the sales side of things, or you're pitching for cash, what have you, whereby you don't want to come across as being too eager, too desperate, too annoying. So if you can see somebody has actually looked at it, or have looked at it a few times, you then know there's maybe a warm lead there, or that's the point to go and follow up, as opposed to just pitching into this void of who knows what that people seem to be engulfed by.
Perfect. Exactly. Right. So you fire it out to 10 people, 5 of them listened, 3 of them listened more than once, 1 of them listened to everything. That's a warm lead for sure.
Yeah, I had a poke in the play at some of the demos, obviously, in the run up to this, just to get a feel for it. And what I really liked was the whole UX, the whole user experience, in terms of one, how simple it seems to be to use and to send, but the fact that it's not just a track that you have to download. You can actually create it almost like a playlist. So if you have multiple tracks to go, then somebody can just click through them and take their notes, read, as you say, the EPK and so on. So it could be almost like a playing platform in its own right, had you chosen it to be for that purpose. But it's that familiarity that people are used to, like the Spotify generation or the Apple Music generation, that they presented with this in a way that they understand.
Very astute, Sean. Yes. So full credit to Michael. You know, he's the product person. I'm you know, and I support him, but he leads it all. And designing simplicity is very difficult. And Michael spends a huge amount of his time trying to make it more simple. And, you know, great design is take away everything you can until it no longer works. And then, you know, stick something back in that makes it really work. And we take that ethos to Songbox in every aspect. Yeah, you know what? Sometimes there's maybe one too many clicks, and we'll try to figure that out with good UI, UX. Too many words, try to tidy that copy up, whatever. But yeah, you know, keeping it simple is really our approach to it, because early on, it was too complicated because we were trying to be too smart. And we thought, like any time you build these products, that you just know best because it's your product. You know best. And actually, we don't know best at all. The users know best. That's why they use it. So we listen more than we develop. And we listen very closely to what they're saying. And more than half of the features on Songbox now in 2025, those are either ideas or initiated from user feedback. So they either gave us the initial idea or they pushed us to create it. So definitely over half the features. And that, you know, that's why we listen a lot. That's why we look at the data, because a lot of what you see in Songbox is user generated. And simplicity is really important because a lot of our users, they're musicians before they're technicians, put it that way. They're not technically, yeah, some of them are very technically minded, but that's not what the passion is, right? So they want simplicity. And we're often asked to make it like as few clicks as possible, and we have to figure that out. And we've designed a lot of that into it. So I would hope that when people demo it or use it, they find it really easy to use and really, really intuitive. And then your final part on that, you know, how you use it and is familiar in the sense of Apple Music and Spotify and that, and the playlists and dynamic playlists. And yeah, totally designed that way for, you know, people are so used to streaming and you know, have been led into that interface type over the last decade. You know, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. Let's just keep it super simple. You know, how you would expect to use a streaming service, even though this is effectively a private streaming service.
So for people like me, it's very proactive. You know, I'd be using this to send it out to whomever, to venues, to record labels, to playlists, to radio stations, etc., to try and get feedback, pass something along the line, wherever else. But is pitching on behalf of people, on behalf of the membership, something that's, you know, in your thoughts as well?
So that's a good question. Maybe. And we've got requests from our members to do things beyond what we started out to do. And some of those things have become more consistent from the user base. Could you do this? Could you do that? And as I said earlier, it's a very sticky product. So we don't like, when people join up, they tend to hang around for a very long time, 18 months on average, and kind of growing. And we are getting more requests to kind of add some other capabilities, which is different to features, right? Like, these are bigger pieces of work, and the outputs of those capabilities, it's far beyond sharing music privately. It is potentially enabling or assisting people in their pitching, or assisting people in their mastering of music or distribution or whatever. We're not going to be a distributor. We're not going to be mastering music. We're not necessarily even going to be pitching. However, we are aware of and do know a lot of other good companies, startups and established, who do these things that we have been speaking with. And actually, we've done some beta versions of really tight integrations with them, so that if you think about the life cycle of a song, and as I said, very early in the conversation. Like, we're really at inception. I got an idea for a song, I'm going to whack it down, throw the early demo into Songbox, play around with it, share it with a few of my band or my manager, get some feedback. What do I think? Actually, version 2, version 3, version 4. I'm getting very close. I'm ready. Let's get it mastered. That's just one. Now let's get the next song in. And you're doing this creative process. And when it's nearly ready for either mastering or even distribution, whatever, I kind of leave Songbox. Cool. That's the way it's designed. And you know, we won't go beyond that because we'll stay in our lane to a degree. But could we help independent artists do more with their work when it's ready for release? Because one of the frustrations we hear from a lot of artists and their managers is they've got to work with 6, 8, 10, 12 different services doing these things. And they have to pay money to all of these different services. And they, more importantly, have to spend time on all of these different services and learning all their nuances and the way they work. And particularly for managers, that tends to drive them crazy, right? Because they want to manage the band and they don't want to be spending so much time on the software and the workflows of all of this stuff. They just want to kind of, not everything in one place. That's probably a bit too ambitious, but maybe like 3 or 4 things in one place and that work really seamlessly together and could reduce, you know, their time spent by even as much as 50% and reduce their bill by 50 or more. That's very interesting to the managers and to some of the artists. So as a direction of travel, I would say we will expand our capabilities, either directly ourselves or in partnership with others, to try to save artists. Not try, we will, actually. I can say this with a level of surety. We will save independent artists and their team money and time. So yeah, it's a very leading question there, Sean, but yeah, that's a direction to travel.
I haven't actually checked this, which I should have before I came on, but have you yet developed an app as well, so when people are on the road?
Yes. So that was, again, an early-ish request from our artists. Was like, when I'm on the road, I need an app. I don't want the website. When I'm in my studio or on the tour bus or whatever, yeah, that's cool. But listen, when I'm walking around, jumping in and out of a car or a van or on the plane, I need an app. So yeah, we built we've an iOS and Android apps. We've been in the store about a year, developed ourselves, and continue to iterate. And yeah, we're quite happy. I think we're up to version 4 now. And again, how it works is largely based on the member feedback, how they want it to work. So I wouldn't say it's a full-featured Spotify-esque app, but it's certainly capable, reliable, and usable for its purpose, which is secure private links in an app that you can listen to or you can share, and it isn't out there, you know, all alone where anyone can listen. So yeah, we have apps, and yeah, very popular.
Last time I encountered you, of course, was when you were doing a great webinar, and it was, you know, your guest was talking about, Jodie was talking about, you know, things people should or shouldn't do. That kind of community engagement, is that something we'll see a bit more of as well?
Yeah, totally. In fact, I did an interview with a fascinating lady from Nashville, a song plugger, not necessarily a radio plugger, a song plugger, who, first of all, runs song workshops, but then is really about placing a song. And that song, yeah, it'll often have an arrangement, but it might just be the lyrics. But you know, but a song plugger, someone who, it's not about getting your song necessarily on the radio. It's about, what is the song? What does it mean? Who would it appeal to? You know, should we be pitching an artist with this song so they make a cut of it? Should we be pitching a radio station or TV station, a sync agent? Where should this song go? Who'd like this song? So Ciarán is a Nashville song plugger, like 20 years in the business. and I did an interview with her. And why? Well, A, she's a member of Songbox, but B, I thought it would be fascinating for people to get more insight into song plugging, and that, you know, you don't necessarily have to write your music and just get it played on the radio or get it in the playlist, right? As it is these days. There's a world beyond all of that you could pitch your song to. And not even just music supervisors. There's a whole world out there that you could think about getting your song, because a great song is a great song, right? Not all songs are great, but great songs are great songs, and there's a whole world out there for them. And I felt like that was worth exposing people to. So we did that session, and I have a couple more booked. And I think we will be doing more of that, Shaun, because some of the members play amazing roles in the industry and can give amazing insights to people. And the thing that kind of drives me a bit batty is on TikTok and Instagram and all that. You know, you get people, and I know everyone's trying to earn a living, but there's a lot of hustle, right? There's a lot of hustle out there with people pitching stuff. And with some of the techniques I've seen, how to get your songs on playlists and Spotify, like, that's just fucking snake oil. Right? That is just looking for people who are either don't know any better or will give them 100 quid because they might get on a Spotify playlist that doesn't do anything for them. And I don't have a great appreciation, as I'm sure you or anyone or many people would, of people kind of taking advantage, knowingly or unknowingly, of people who are really trying to get their music heard. So the more we can do, and others, there's so many brilliant people out there who give great advice for nothing and don't want anything. The more we can do that, the better. And when I know of, and I work with so many people who know so many amazing things that are teaching me all the time, sharing that information would be a worthwhile experience and time worthwhile. And for Michael and me and Brian, in our how we think is like not just well-intentioned, but a virtuous circle. It's like you don't need to do these webinars or these talks, and it's really just a sales seminar. Never mind a webinar. It's a sales seminar to sell your thing, right? Like disguised amongst this interesting information. Fucking shoot me, right? It's like, actually, can you have a conversation? Can you learn something? And then can you put that learning to use? That's it. Whether it's relevant to Songbox or not doesn't matter. So yeah, we'll definitely do more of those and do them in the way we've been trying to do them, which is to just have an interesting interview or an interesting show. And if people go away and learn stuff from it, great. Like the one we did with Jody, we had hundreds of people submit their music. I can't remember. It was like over 300 people. It was crazy for like one 45-minute webinar. Did they all become customers? No, of course they didn't. Did any of them? Maybe, but like that wasn't the purpose. But did I get maybe 20, 30, 40 emails or notes from people saying, thank you so much, that was so informative, I've learned things to do? Yeah, I got a lot of that. Certainly got more than that than people who turned into members, and that was the benefit. That's the benefit of it, you know. And keep paying that forward and moving forward, and you know, those kind of good vibes will pay themselves back eventually.
What was really good about that one as well was the fact that it was at a different time of day. You know, it wasn't like in the middle of the night. It wasn't first thing in the morning. It was at a sensible time where people could come along. And the community who were in the chat there were just really, really nice and supportive to each other.
Yeah, I purposely chose 6 p.m. on a weekday UK time, knowing our market and just kind of knowing things about media. It's like, and working in different time zones. 6 p.m. here, 5 p.m. New York. 8 a.m. LA, still very accessible times, right? So 6 p.m. was chosen intentionally. And leaving the chat on in Zoom was intentional as well, because I knew we were going to have hundreds of people attend the webinar. And given that most of them were independent artists, Michael and me, our own perspective on things and our hope was that 100% of everyone showing up would just be a great person, and they were. And art is amazing and amazingly hard to make a living out of, and artists supporting each other is kind of the energy the other artists need to keep going. So my hope and our hope was that leaving the chat open and seeing artists support one another would be the outcome and that's what we got, and it was great, right? Because that just gave everyone a bit more energy, a bit more hope to keep going forward. And of the music that was shared, like, I did sit, took me 2 days, and I listened to everything that was shared. And not every song was a great song. Some were good, some were okay. Some were great. Some were really, really great songs. And Jody picked a few of them, and there was more than a few. There was a lot of great songs. And that's the other scary thing, is there's so much quality out there. There's so much quality, and there's so many songs that go unheard, and that's a bit of a crime. So the more we can do to help artists get recognized and get paid, the better. And the more people who get the opportunity to listen to their music, great music, the better as well. Because that's the other problem, certainly with streaming services. There's just so much stuff. And now they're just getting swamped with AI-generated stuff, right? That's a debate for another day, I know, Sean. But, maybe I'm a bit of a boomer, but, I do miss the old days of just the big old radio stations with real DJs picking songs based on their tastes and what they think their audience likes, not just giant fucking playlists of stuff like some sort of processed music factory. Fuck me. Like, that's just depressing. But anyway, enough of my own personal views.
Well, actually, it's perfect, because it leads me right into our quick fire round just to finish things off with. What was the music of your youth, and do you still carry it with you?
Yes, so first concert I ever went to was The Prodigy in Dublin's Point Depot. For old schoolers who'll know that, in New Year's Eve 1994. And behind me somewhere is that ticket. Oh, there we go. I have my first 3 Prodigy tickets in a frame here. One of them is ruined, but yeah, I saw The Prodigy 3 times. First time was with Black Grape. I don't know if anyone remembers that. I was also at a gig where the Manic Street Preachers supported The Prodigy, which is mental. And another gig with The Prodigy and a couple of Basement Jacks on support. Yeah, so first 3 gigs, Prodigy, and then I went to the Prodigy's tour last year as well. So yeah, bit of an electronic music fan, but also a massive AC/DC fan as well, who I've seen too many times. A Slipknot fan as well, and a Metallica fan, and Maiden and Pearl Jam, and I'm a big rock and metal head too. And I DJ in a club every week, and some of that music I still play if the vibe is right for the crowd. So yeah, I definitely carry the music of my youth with me.
And what was the last song or podcast that you played?
The last album I played, which was only over the weekend from start to finish, was Pet Sounds, obviously, with Brian Wilson passing away. So I played Pet Sounds from start to finish. And the last thing I was listening to was Sleep Token Headline Download Festival at the weekend. I've been at the Download Festival in Castle Donington a lot. But I'm getting a bit old for that these days. So I just listened to it. And the last podcast I listened to was a football podcast, actually, because the internationals were on. So a deviation from music. I'm ashamed of myself.
Would you choose an exclusive album launch or a festival?
Festival.
Favourite food or rider?
You know, it's boring as hell, but I'd take a bowl of pasta any day.
If you could collaborate with anyone alive or from history on a project, who would it be and why?
Oh, Liam Howlett from The Prodigy. Just, come on, give me a day in the studio, Liam, and we'll cook something up.
Restaurant, cinema, or lazy Sunday brunch?
Cinema.
Digital addict or can you switch off?
I am unfortunately a digital addict right now. I used to be able to switch off and read a book quite easily. Yeah, I think I've got a problem. I think the world is a problem. And I'm ashamed to say it, but I am a digital addict.
What does life look like after you stop?
Very black. Darkness.
One artist everyone should be listening to right now.
Oh, that is a great question. That is a great question. Oh, I really, really like an electronic metal artist called Carpenter Brute, which is really intense stuff. And there's also a Scottish artist, he's been going a while though, from Aberdeen, and he's like a one-person solo metal show. I know he's got a band now, but Hellripper, extraordinary talent, independent metal musician, and that talent, abundance of talent in Scotland and in the UK that just never gets heard is infuriating. Sorry, I'll stop ranting.
What's the best piece of advice you've been given or would share with others?
I think as I've got older, one of the best lessons in life is it's not about you. And when you realize that and accept it, and you're far more open to listening to other people and helping other people and figuring things out, life becomes so much easier, and stop worrying about the past or yourself selfishly, and just let go a bit and fucking relax. Life is fucking hard, so why make it any harder? Just chill the fuck out.
And finally, from where you started until now, what's been the good stuff in between?
The best things are, as Janet Jackson said, right? The best things in life are free, right? It's just fucking, honestly, maybe I am a boomer, but like, you have your highs and you have your lows. Family, obviously. Meeting good people, good energy. Stay away from fucking bad energy. Time vampires. Because time is the most valuable thing. And you just completely underappreciate and underestimate it until one day you realize how fleeting it really is. So the best stuff in between is all of those things. But you know what? If it was to be a piece of advice and a thought, I would say getting uncomfortable. Getting uncomfortable. And that doesn't have to just be work. That could be learning an instrument. It could be learning a sport. It could be doing anything that makes you uncomfortable. Is one of the best things in between, because you learn and you grow, and it's a good use of your fucking time. That's what it is. It's a good use of your time. So yeah, there you go.
Well, Ciarán O'Toole, helping people stay uncomfortable, co-founder of Songbox. Thanks so much for your time today.
Shaun, thank you. Great questions. Yeah, that was, I didn't think it was going in that direction, but that was good. Thank you.
I know now how I went so wrong. I disconnected from the past.
This was the Good Stuff in Between, written, edited and produced by myself, Shaun Milne, in association with Skoog Media Associates. Thanks very much once again to Ciarán O'Toole, co-founder of Songbox. I'll be sure and put a link in the show notes in case you want to check out the platform yourself. It's really slick, it's really cool to use. I would thoroughly recommend it from what I've been doing so far. Our theme tune this week's been Nothing's Going to Bring Me Down by Willie Campbell. You can find out more from Willie at williecampbell.co.uk, and do check out the new song from him and the Tumbling Souls, 1995, which is out on July the 4th. The good news is you can pre-save it now. You can follow me on social media at Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the usual places except the one we don't talk about anymore. And I'll be back very, very soon with a new episode wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.
For tomorrow, nothing's gonna bring me down. Nothing's gonna bring me down. No thinking about